Well, Russian President Putin declared this morning, in fact, that plans to damage Russia's economy through sanctions have failed. So now the way to crush Russia is with a nuclear war, I guess. And NATO seems hell-bent on doing just that by any means necessary. Volodymyr Zelensky, the dictator from Ukraine, who, of course, canceled elections, is now conceding. He conceded yesterday, in fact, that Ukraine has no physical way of recapturing Crimea and therefore winning any kind of war. So peace? No, not exactly. In fact, the head of NATO just overnight said no peace, more weapons. So he's telling Ukraine exactly what he wants, which is World War III. Friend of the show, Tucker Carlson, just landed in Moscow for a big interview, and he warns that we are on the precipice of World War III. Watch.
In the week since we left Russia, Moscow, where we are now, in February, after interviewing Vladimir Putin, we've watched from the United States as the Biden administration has driven the U.S. ever closer to a nuclear conflict with Russia, the country that possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It has accelerated ever since, and it's reached its apogee so far in the weeks after Trump's election. He is now the president-elect. In that time, just a few weeks ago, the Biden administration, American military personnel launched missiles into mainland Russia and killed at least a dozen Russian soldiers. So we are, unbeknownst to most Americans, in a hot war with Russia, an undeclared war, a war you did not vote for and that most Americans don't want, but that is ongoing.
Well, joining me now from Siberia is Dmitry Zolotarev. He is a journalist and an analyst, and he's joining us from Siberia today to make sense of all of this. Dmitry, great to have you here on the show. When you, first of all, you hear the two sides of this. You hear Volodymyr Zelensky's admitting now it's over. We can't win this through physical means. We've got to maybe come to the peace table. And then you hear NATO saying, no peace. More war, more weapons. What do you think be the Russian response to this?
First of all, Clayton, thanks for having me. It's an honor. And speaking about Zelensky, I don't see him as a reasonable person. I don't pay too much attention to what he speaks. The fact is that Zelensky would never choose a negotiation table. Why? Because he knows exactly that Russia's president and politicians won't talk to him whatsoever. Not now. Maybe a few years back. So now negotiations are off the table with him. And someone from his side. You see, Ukraine is pretty much infiltrated with Western-oriented thugs and just crazy politicians who just drink in Ukraine's blood. Let me say that. So Russia won't talk to them, and they do understand them. And as far as I see, no one in Ukraine is able to change Zelensky. No perspective of overthrowing the Zelensky's government whatsoever right now. So the way is just like I see it, when Russia finishes it on its own terms. So really, and I'm sorry to say that the ongoing war is the only answer to end it, unfortunately. And speaking about Russian president, so I pretty much believe that I understand his position. He understands that there is no other way Russia is given than to continue the war. That's all the West is doing now.
With these long-range attacks inside of Russia, we saw overnight, of course, the Ministry of Defense on the Russian side launching hypersonic missiles in the Mediterranean Sea, practicing, showing off drills, practicing for a longer-range war against NATO. I mean, this is make no mistake about it. This is a war between NATO and Russia at this point. Now, Tucker Carlson in Moscow overnight interviewing Sergei Lavrov, and it's ominous. Says we have never been closer to World War III and a nuclear exchange. This war is going to continue. So, and you see the neocons in Washington, D.C. that are trying to push for that to happen before Trump takes office, a massive war. Are you concerned that even like before Christmas, this will explode in a way that we can only imagine in nightmares?
Frankly, Clayton, I see this situation two ways. it just resembled me an old joke which I heard when I was a schoolboy back in Soviet Union. If you allow me, I'll just tell it in a few words. There is a prince who wants to marry a next-door princess. So he comes to her father, asks to let him to marry her, and the father says, "Okay, but there is a country, not country, but area, very rich area, which we would like to take, but we are too much afraid because a huge bear lives there. So if you help me to get rid of the bear, you get to marry my daughter, and I'll give you half of my kingdom." Okay? So the prince says, "All right," venturing into the wild, and after a week of traveling, he finds a huge mountain and a huge cave in this mountain, and it smells like bear. He figures out that the bear lives there. So he starts screaming, "Hey, bear, come out, I'll beat you-know-what out of you." And the mountain turns around and says, "You're gonna fight? All right, let's fight. Why screaming into my you-know-what?" So the fact is that those strikes into Russia by ATACMS missiles, those are like just, like Scott Ritter said, it's just pinpricks. And the real hard punch is on Russia's side. The fact is that Russia fired this new system, Oreshnik system, into Ukraine, was not really understood. They are largely speculating if Russia has enough of it or it's just experimental. I'll tell you this, Russia has more than enough of Oreshnik. If Vladimir Putin says we're gonna pump up the production, it means we have all we need. And the targets already planted into the system. That's how the West should understand his words. I would.
But they're not,
because
they don't seem to be taking him seriously at all. I mean, the West is poking the bear. They continue to provoke.
Yeah.
And overnight, we're seeing the almost complete collapse now of all of those areas that Ukraine had controlled in the Donbass in eastern Ukraine. And Russia has categorically taken each of these villages, all of these areas of ethnic Russians that voted overwhelmingly to become part of Russia for the protection of Russia, the Russian Federation. The front is collapsing. Those are the reports over the last 24 hours. So are we about to see? I always say this, Dmitry, the scariest people to deal with are those who have, or their backs are against the ropes. They're about to be punched out, knocked out. That's when they lash out in a big way. And I'm worried now that NATO is seeing this, the total collapse of the front in Ukraine, and something big is coming here.
You know, the General Christopher Cavoli, he's a knowledgeable general. He sees it as it is. He does understand what's going on. And there are people in Pentagon who do understand what's going on. So here in Russia, we do not believe that something huge will erupt up to somewhere around Christmas or New Year or maybe in January. But we do understand that Biden's administration and his team are doing all they can to leave the United States and political situation in the world as bad as possible for him to deal. So he wouldn't have any chance to do anything to solve it. But to continue the war, that's what they're doing. And I believe that they won't do anything crucial, which would just provoke Russia to respond in, let me say, in a panic way. No panic way from Russia's side whatsoever.
And that's what they want. That's absolutely right. That's what they want. Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham in the United States, they're actively trying to provoke Putin. And it seems like he's been sitting back. They keep doing these like long-range attacks, and Putin just keeps saying, you want to keep trying this, but it seems like he's reserved in this. And there has been targeted response with these massive new missile systems. But it hasn't been overwhelming. Do you think he's sitting back waiting for President Trump to take office on January 20th?
Well, Putin doesn't wait for anyone. Putin has an agenda. And he did have an agenda in case Kamala Harris comes to the office, and he did have an agenda should Donald Trump come to the office. So he already knows what he's going to do. He already knows what Trump's team is going to do. Unless we don't have, all of Trump's team on the table. But no, you did notice that some of his speaks are just silent about anything, like Tulsi Gabbard, Robert Kennedy Jr., J.D. Vance. They don't say anything. And those who we hear, they may not be in the office at all. We have enough time to see the changes. Like it just happened. Hexet. He may not be the head of Pentagon, most likely. So, but he was one of the most vocal about we are the one team with Biden's administration. We will continue to support Ukraine and so on and so forth. Nobody in Russia, nobody serious like President Putin or Sergei Lavrov take those words seriously. They are very competent, and then they know the situation in depth. That's why Russia is so cold-blooded, so still, and all the ATACMS missiles which come to Russia, most of them, 99%, are being hit in the air. So no permanent damage has been done yet.
Dmitry, I'll get you out of here on this, which is, where do you see the Ukraine-Russian war ending, or how do you see it ending, and how long until do you think it ends?
Frankly, Clayton, I think the whole next year at last. Because
next year.
The whole next year, yes, that's what I believe. And I think it's the best way scenario. Because Russia won't tolerate the whole Black Sea coast belonging to unfriendly state unless Ukrainian government is being changed to a friendly government to Russia, which is unbelievable to me right now. And this means Russia is going to take Nikolaev Oblast, Odessa Oblast, right to Transnistria. You see what I mean? So I think, and maybe more, and as long as they push for war, this means the more territories Ukraine is going to lose. Yes, its army is in collapse, but it does have a capability of some regional fighting. Let's say in Odessa, they have a huge garrison in Odessa, in Nikolaev. So it means the whole next year will be a year of heavy fighting. I see it like this. And many people, many politicians in Russia do see it the same way, as far as I believe.
Well, we'll have to see what happens when Trump takes office on January 20th and how quickly this could be wrapped up or extended. We'll see if we can hold the Trump team to its word that they want this ended immediately. We'll see about that. Joining me from Siberia is Dmitry Zolotarev, journalist and analyst from Siberia. Dmitry, great to see you. And I think it's like, 8 degrees or like negative 15 degrees Celsius right now? What's the temperature there in Siberia right now?
Let me check it out. We have the warmest November and the warmest start of December right now. Now it minus 12 Celsius.
Minus 12.
And a few days back, we did have a huge meltdown, plus 6 Celsius. Unbelievable.
Wow. Well,
now
balmy.
We have a killer roads.
That's beach weather. Dmitry, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor, like I said.